hang out for as long as you all want. So if we don't quite capture what you want to take, where you want to take it, I'm here for you. Okay, so my name is Ken Lane. I own the garden center. So I've owned it since 2002. Actually, I've been an owner since 1992. Has it been 30 years? Oh my gosh. So I was a kid out of college, business management, taking on the world. You know what those young bucks are, going out there. I'm going to go. I was a banker. That's really slay the dragon, go after the money. Don't want your friend, stab the guy in front of you, push him aside, and go forward. I hated myself. And so I wanted to come back home. This is where I was raised. My wife's born and raised. Kids are born and raised. This is our town. But it's hard to get a job here. So it's still, even today, we've quadrupled in size. It's still hard to get a job here. Unless your family owns a ranch and you subdivide. Now it's called, you're a developer, or you're in healthcare, taking care of folks as they retire. They're going to need healthcare. You can bank on that. And then what else? Your family had to own a small business. So our family owned a small business. So I was chopping wood with Harold Waters, the founder, my father-in-law. He had 4 daughters, and I married the youngest and the prettiest one. So we're just chopping wood like guys do. We're just talking, just kind of, I don't know, guys, when you're working together, we just kind of get connected and get closer. It's something men do, just kind of chopping wood. A quart of wood later, we negotiated a deal where I can come in and buy the garden center and kind of take it over. So I'm the 2nd generation owner. I have 4 kids, and 3 of them have 0 interest in the business. So my oldest is she lives in Austin, Texas, in her 30s. I hate to tell you how old my kids are because it just says how old I am. But anyway, they're in their 30s. Married, we just found out. There was a reveal. They did it in a very classy way 2 days ago. They're having a boy. It's very exciting. Yeah, it's their first, so it's very exciting. They need kids, actually. They need kids. That'll be good for them. My son, he's in the Army, so he's a captain. If you get hurt while driving an Abrams tank or a howitzer cannon, his crew is going to take care of you. He just takes care of, not First Armored, that was before. Whatever Mount Fort Hood is, that's north of Austin, between Dallas. That are you military folks, Army folks, you know where that is. So he's got 3 kids, been married for like 10, 11 years. So long, I kind of forget. But they're our favorite family so far because they've got 3 grandkids, and grandkids are awesome. So, and then I've got identical twin girls. They're in their late 20s. And so Mackenzie, you'll see her here today. She is in training to take over the garden center. She's well educated. She's got all the paper you'd want to see, but now it's the experience. How do you interact with vendors? How do you customers, and how do you all that, marketing, PR, HR, taxes, all the little stuff that you don't see in small business, the not fun piece. She's got to learn that piece too. So that's kind of our family in a nutshell. Her twin sister lives in. Hey, all these Texans. We're going to Texas all the time. I'd rather go to Cancun or Cabo or someplace, but we're going to Texas. So she is in Austin, Texas, esthetician, single yet. So she's kind of still figuring out the world. She kind of blew out of here last year going, this town's not big enough for me. You know how kids are. Good. Hopefully they'll come back to us. But that's our family in a nutshell. So we've got 3 generations working here, and you'll quite often see our family dogs running around. It's just it's a family business. 60 years in business, started in 1962. Harold started back in the 50s doing a landscape. And the rumor is, I don't know if this is true or not, I had a station wagon, I borrowed a shovel and a wheelbarrow. I started my landscape company. There was probably truth somewhere in there, but back there the town was really small. And so he started the first garden center here in Prescott. This is our 3rd location. This is our new location. It was put here in 1983. And he never dreamed we'd use all the property. I still wish I had a couple more acres. But that's just kind of where we're at. As the town grows, we seem to be able to grow. We've had farms all over, and so we know the sequence. We know what grows. We know how to grow things. We're pretty much experts, and I hire master gardeners, really smart people that know how to garden. And so when you're talking to folks, they're not bluffing. I mean, you're not allowed to bluff. You have to actually know the answer or radio out, get the answer, because you're coming here for great plants and how to plant them. And if we fail on that, why wouldn't you shop at Home Depot? Come on, big orange box. They sell plants too, cheaper than us, but they die. So we've got better plants than the Vice that kind of makes them all grow. So that's our niche in the marketplace and what we're doing. Today, Gardening for New, let's just see who's the newest person here, okay? So Gardening for Newcomers. Has anyone been here less than a year? Oh, more than I thought. Really? Very good. Half the crowd. Online, raise your hand. Say hi. We like you too. We're not forgetting you. How about less than 6 months? Anyone have not built your house yet? You're still waiting for it to finish? Oh, 2, 3. There we go. Awesome. Welcome. Welcome. We're glad you're here. Now that you're here, shut the door. That's you got to get. It takes you about 6 months for you to go, no more. This place is too crowded. Oh, the roads. I had to wait. I almost had to wait 2 lights to get to the light. We have a rush hour, but man, I was in Portland, Oregon all week. That's a river city. That's a serious town. And I'm going south. We're staying in the Hearts, going south towards Salem. That's where all of our conifers are grown. A lot of the summer blooming things are grown up there. Lilacs, they grow better lilacs up there. So I can afford to grow them there and ship them because they're nicer, full. They grow faster, fuller. We got to cut them back more to get them chubby, but we get a nicer product. So we're going up there to check out next year's fruit trees, next year's shade. This fall, we got some beautiful grasses, some maples that are to die for. They're on their en route. So we're going up. We like to personally see the crop. And then if you shake the hand of a farmer in this industry, it's an eye-to-eye thing, and it's a family thing. And if you do that, you get better, that relationship matters, and so you get better plants. And during COVID, if you run out of something, you can call up going, hey, Tim, I got no more. I want that other person that's only had no relationship with you. Could you give me some of theirs? And you get the favors. And so we've thrived during the whole COVID thing. So anyway, Portland, it used to be a great town, and now it's just been trashed. Oh my gosh, I'm just embarrassed for them, actually. I'm truly, truly embarrassed. It's just not a town to be on. It's off my list. I have this list of cities that I love. Grand Rapids. I love Grand Rapids. It's a great town. I love Boston. I love Atlanta. I don't like Portland, so it's off my list. It stinks. It's homeless everywhere. Oh, traffic. Anyway, I digress. Sorry about that. Back to, let's just cover zones. You are a zone 7. What does that mean? Actually, we're starting to warm up. We used to be, when I was a kid, 30 years ago, and when I was 30, we were a zone 6. So we had to have plants that could go sub-zero. We haven't seen that in forever. And so the way they do zones, it's a moving average. So they'll take the last few years, they go, oh, they take those temperatures. Now you are a zone, we're now a zone 7. So we haven't seen sub-zero. Personally, I would like to go back to colder winters, a little bit more snow, but it kills the bugs. There's some things that happen that are good for the garden. But we're zone 7, and it looks like we're about to jump to zone 8. So I grow quite a few zone 8 plants. These are plants that need to go down. They can go down to 10 degrees. Zone 7 goes down to 5. Zone 6 goes below 0. And so the zone thing is just how cold hardy are they? How will it make it through the winter? That's what it really matters. And so we're zone 7B as in boy. If you're looking at the USDA zone map, zone 7B as in boy. That's us, okay? What that means is you can grow zone 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's your number plus everything below. So it's not just zone 7 plants. That's a very small palette. You can grow the lilacs, which are zone 5. You can grow forsythia, zone 4. You can grow the really cold stuff that they grow in like Minnesota, Wisconsin. You can grow that stuff. It's just how much antifreeze does that plant have inside the structure of that plant before it dies. And so it's a rating. That's what that is, okay? Frost dates. You got to know when it's going to frost and when it's not going to frost. And if you've not gone through a spring here, it is beautiful in the spring or it's blizzard condition. It can be both in the same week. And so starting the end of February, typically after Valentine's Day, it starts getting really nice. Like the days are, like you have less layers, you have layers on, but it's during the day, you're walking out through the forest and just maybe a cover or something. It's pretty nice. At night, it will be like 18, but it's starting to feel really nice. In March, it's really getting nice. Now the snow is melted. We're done. There is no frost line. There's no ice in the soil. You can start gardening. You truly can start gardening as long as you plant things that can take frost and snow. These are things like pansies. Your vegetables would be like lettuce and cabbage and kale. The herbs would be lettuce, or would be rosemary and parsley. They all like that bright days, cold nights. The flavor comes out better in your, thank you. Oh, appreciate that. Yeah, why don't you just pass that around, Ken? That's just, oh, good. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, great idea. So just start there. Yeah, thank you. This is to the handouts. So I can't afford to print out in full color, or I don't want to print out, or I don't want to take the time to print out everything in a digital world. I'd rather just send it to your phone and be done. But email will get you there. So I'm going to send out the vegetable garden calendar. You folks online, we know you're there. Don't go anywhere. The refrigerator will wait a second. The vegetable calendar. So I think this was the new folks that haven't finished their house yet. Oh wait, you were the vegetable calendar gal. You were asking. And then you were the preferred plant guide. And then I've got another one, javelina proof. Anyone have javelina? This is for you. There you go. The plants that generally javelina, most of the herds read the list, not all of them, but most of them read it, generally speaking. A lot of that's drought pressure. So when it's really, really dry, they'll migrate over to things they really don't like. They have their preferred. So I think the pressure's off for now with the deer and the rabbits. They got plenty to eat right now. So, okay, where was I at before I got derailed? This is coming to you. Now, if you're part of our garden club, it's not going to all 10,000 people. It's only going to the 100 people or so online here. It's only going to you all, because not everyone cares about gardening for newcomers. So you're getting those handouts. And I've got one other book. I wrote a book called The Low Maintenance Landscape. How to keep weeds down, how you do drip irrigation, what are the super drought hardy plants. And we'll mention some here. You'll have the entire list in about a 50, 60-page book. It's all downloaded by PDF, so you can read it on anything you want, iPad, whatever. So that's coming to you, a book and the 2 handouts, okay? All coming your way here this afternoon in a link form, okay? It'll be short and sweet, easy. So I'm trying to get you the info because some of you are note-taking, and it'll be so much, it'll be a lot of notes today. You'll have the handout shortly. Zone 7, frost dates. Our frost dates are May 8th, last frost, and October 28th, first frost. This is 100 years of data. We gather up and over 100 years. May 8th is our last. So the locals use Mother's Day, May 10th or so, as the holiday of, so you'll hear Mother's Day. Don't plant after Mother's Day. Frost-sensitive things are after Mother's Day. That'd be tomatoes, dahlias, things that will be damaged by frost. Plant those after May 8th. But we've been planting for 2 months ahead of that, things that like the frost. If you wait till May 8th to plant things like spinach, it's going to bolt. Broccoli, it's going to bolt. It'll go into flower and have a bitter taste to you. It needs to be planted far earlier to get that head nice and tight and full and sweeter. So certain things are like that. Pansies. Our first winter crop of pansies. We're bringing these in because this will actually bloom all winter long. So we haven't had this since probably the end of April. There's been no pansies available. And so because these will bolt in the summer sun, they just they grow up and just flop over and die. They don't like the heat. They love the cold. But we're so mild that like in the Midwest, they'll actually go until about the end of the year, and then they freeze out. Here they don't freeze out. They keep on blooming. And so I'll try to plug some of these into my gardens as soon as I can, as soon as I see anything languish. So if the geraniums, if you're not performing in my gardens, you're in grave danger, and I have no love affair. They are not puppy dogs planted in the garden. You're being ripped out, and I'm putting a pretty one in. And so I'm looking for things that aren't, the dahlias just have got mildew. I'll pull those things out. And I'm looking to put these in so that they can fill out and so that they're in full color through winter. And I want them to have enough growing time to be nice and full. So even in January, we've got a snow. These things are popping through the snow going, I'm ready. I know you're missing your gardens. Here you are. And so by the front door, I'll put them in the containers by the front door, just so I've got something to look out, sip my tea and go, I know how to garden. Look at that. And so most folks the big mistake they make with these is they get the season off. And so they'll come in, they've seen these in bloom in their neighborhood all winter, all spring. They're magnificent, March, April, first part of May. They'll come in May and get the last couple pansies we have, and they're good for a few weeks. But then once you get above 90 degrees, you can't grow these. You can't water them enough. They just flame out and die. So I've got a few left over from last winter. On the north side of my house, they hardly see any sun. They're still living, still growing. They're actually starting to actively grow now. But usually all the other ones out in the front yard, they're all dead. They died way back. So that seasonality is important. So that's at May 8, Mother's Day, and Halloween is that's typically our first frost date. It's been really nice out. And then all of a sudden, the parents are taking the kids out, and it's pretty chilly at night when you're trick-or-treating, that kind of stuff about Halloween, or it can be glorious. Now, what will happen is, again, we don't slowly warm up here. We violently get warm. We'll go from 18 during the day to 60. I mean, it'll be, whoa, spring is here, and then it just gets, we'll do the same thing in the fall. We were famous for our Indian summers. It's so nice for so long, and then it goes really cold. I'm going, okay, winter's here. Nope, and then it goes right back to really nice. It goes through Thanksgiving, just this beautiful weather. But starting October, you better be ready to pick those last tomatoes, to cover that, to keep those geraniums going. You can keep those growing through the end of the year if you protect them from that deep freeze, that hard frost. By about Thanksgiving, first part of December, we can get some serious snow. Just depends. Or we can get nothing. Last 2 years, we've had zero snow. That's why we're in this drought problem. Hopefully, we're coming out of this, but snow is what we count on to get us out of drought. And so we need that snow. January is our coldest month. It is not our most difficult month to grow things. Most of your plants are dormant. They're deciduous. They've lost their leaves, or they're in stasis. You get red Cotoneaster, these broadleaf conifers, the needled pine trees and stuff. They're not growing. They're not dying. They're just sitting there going, it's cold. I'm not sure what I'm doing yet. They're forming buds is what they're doing, or flower buds or leaf buds, just very slowly. And so you can't hardly make a mistake in January. Everything is just frozen. It's just cold. It's fine. Don't worry about them. June is our hardest month. June is hot. It's 95 degrees. There's a prevailing southwest wind that happens in the spring. It's coming out of the southwest, nonstop, day and night, all the time. And it's 10% humidity. It's a poltergeist or something there. I don't know what happened. Or my duct tape failed. I think I have a duct tape fail. June is hot, dry, and a prevailing southwest wind, and you've got all this tender new growth. You just have to get things to live through June, because the monsoons always come in July. We never know how much rain we're going to get, but it always comes. The cloud cover comes. Thank you, Ken. That southwest wind stops. And so now the tender new growth starts to harden off. The new growth from those spruce get kind of weepy in the heat of June. But all of a sudden they get real right. It's like you gave them a Viagra dose. They pop right up, they solidify, and they get that waxy coat, and they're just straight up, and they're going right to the moon. So they aren't stressed. They just look good. And so July, the pressure's off. It's almost a second planting season. I prefer planting during the monsoon than I do in the spring. I have better luck. This is very difficult for you folks from the Midwest and East Coast, because there it's fall is for planting. Autumn's the best time. Wait till November. Not here. Here, because of the monsoon rain, the increased humidity and the cloud cover, whenever that rain starts, it's better to put in big trees, big spruce, big maples, more fruit trees now than it is to wait until fall. So that's kind of a myth. And it's unique to this little bubble of the Southwest where we get a monsoon pattern. So you don't do that in Denver. You do that in northern Arizona. And so you get this second planting season. So One thing I get a lot, probably several times a day, just because we have that tropical influence of Phoenix, Palm Springs, Southern California, the one zone wonders is they just think I can't plant. It's too late to plant. It's not too late to plant. It's okay to plant now. It's a good time to plant now. And so let's cover watering real quick. So I'm starting to see overwatering of the plants. So we've had our irrigation on in June. We're just watering like crazy. You just can't water enough. And so you're dumping the water on them, and then the monsoons come in July and August. All of a sudden, you forgot to throttle back the irrigation of June, and we have monsoon rains once or twice a week. You get this big dump of water. All of a sudden, the soil starts to front load with a lot of moisture, and the plants start to root rot. And when you walk your neighborhood, take a look, you'll see your spruce and pine. They see some yellow needles on the inside. That's guaranteed overwatering. You see some brown tips, maybe even some moisture, some white powdery mildew. I'm seeing a lot of that right now. You're seeing this white mildew that's coating the foliage. Those are all indications that plant is staying too moist, too wet. They can be a little bit droopy sometimes. You're going, oh, they're droopy. The tips are starting to burn out. It needs more water. And so you compound the issue by adding more water. And so it literally just collapses all at once. Once a pine tree starts collapsing, there's no recovery. It's too late. Once a spruce starts to go yellow, once it turns brown needles, it's gone. There's no recovery. Cypress and juniper is a little bit different. There might be hope, but it's better just to watch. When the monsoons come, you got to be careful and adjust. So you'll be playing with your irrigation a little bit more here than you do in other parts of the country. When you're watering, let's just cover that real quick. You should be getting to the point, if you've got established landscapes, that is, it's been in the ground for 2 rooting seasons, so 2 springs. If it's rooted out twice, it's gone from that bucket, from this little tiny, this is a hibiscus, okay? So this is the only big flowered hibiscus that grows up here. This is called Mishutos hibiscus. It dies back to the ground. It hibernates like a true perennial underground. Then it comes back fresh, and it'll be up about hip high or so. But it's covered in these big hand-sized flowers all summer through fall. And so for you folks from that Hawaii, Phoenix is famous for some of their tropical hibiscus. Those don't grow up here. They won't go through the winter. They'll grow in the summer, but they won't make it through the winter. So you need to bring it indoors, have a greenhouse, protect it some way. This one, just don't worry about it. It's going to hibernate underground and come back fresh next spring. This one, probably you're watering this about twice a week if you have it on a drip irrigation. It's got a very deep root structure. And so, but you need to get the roots from here to the outer layers so you get this full-on root structure. And it takes a couple seasons for it to get that far out there. The beauty of planting now is things are actively growing right now. Even the big spruce trees, you don't see top growth, but they are really pushing the roots right now. Things are rooting out fast. It's humid, it's warm, the ground is warm. They're actively looking out moisture. And so if you know that's how plants are growing right now, plant them now, encourage them to root, get them through next spring's root, and then by then you could probably back this thing off from every other day watering in the garden to once a week, twice a week at most. You'd be fine with that. Great thing about this plant, it's a real crybaby. So if it gets dry, it's just whiny. It starts drooping. It's like a tomato. They start drooping down, going, I'm so hot, I can't take it anymore. You wuss, here's a little bit of more water. Get out, put your boots on. So anyway, so we'll go over how to plant a little more detail, but some plants I do use as a canary in the coal mine. I use pansies, that one I showed, this one. I use this one a lot in winter because these are also crybabies. If they get too cold, they lay on the ground. If they're too dry, they lay on the ground. If they're stressed at all, they lay on the ground. And then as soon as the sun comes up, boom, they're right up going, okay, just psych, I'm happy now. It's now 40 degrees. I'm happy. But it also will tell me how often should I water everything else that's in that garden. Let's say I have this planted with lavender. Lavender does not talk to you. It is stoic. It's going to look like it's going to look until it is dead. And then once it dies, there's no recovery. It's not going to tell you. It's not going to send you signals. It's not going to smell different. So I'll put one of these in there to go, oh, if that's dry, I'll just water that whole part of the garden at the same time. So it gives me a regulator. I think we can use plants. Gardeners know how to do this. You're in tune. You're talking to your plants. If you're not a gardener yet, just to say that you're here at a class, Gardening for Newcomer, half the crowd hasn't even been here a year. You're pretty much all gardeners. You're all gardeners. Just admit it. These things can really help get in tune with the local plant palette very, very quickly. So anyway, you're watering trees and shrubs with micro irrigation or by hand, either one, about once a week. Deep-rooted things, roses, they're very deep-rooted. Once a week is fine. Vines, honeysuckle, akebia, ivies, once a week. That's good. You don't need everyday watering, not with our heavy clay soil. Things that are different would be shallower rooted stuff. That'd be like your vegetables, flowers. These things only have roots probably only inches deep, not feet deep. And so that soil will dry out a little faster. So there you might be watering those in June, probably every day. Now, maybe every other day or so. So you can back it off because they're not drying out as quickly. As the days shorten, so we're going to have by winter solstice, you're really cutting that thing back to once a month, maybe twice a month. But we do water year round here. We don't let it go without. And your landscaper's going to go, you can't maintain the system. It might freeze. It doesn't matter. You might have to drag out the hose and water the thing, especially new things. You may have to water by hand once a month to get them a deep soak. I generally say twice a month for new plants. It's been in the ground less than 2 years. Water it twice a month. Go out in January. There's going to be some beautiful days. Go out and water things and just kind of take the edge off. If you're watering by hand, 1 inch of water you see on the surface will penetrate 6 inches of soil. So 1 inch to 6 inches. So if you've got a big maple tree or big spruce you planted and you've got 18 inches deep, 14, 18 inches, you might need 3 or 4 inches of water in that water basin or on the top of there to push that soil down far enough. The biggest mistake I find with newbies, I just had someone return a great big tree, big shade tree. Been in the ground for 2 years. It's warranted, fine. It's not fine, idiot, didn't listen. But you could tell the tree had a big root mass, large, substantial. This thing was really trying to grow. It's really wanted to live. It wanted to live. Plants want to live. They don't want to die. You have to kill them for them to die. And the way you do that is you water them every day for like 15 minutes with the drip system. And so that drip will run, and that's what this guy was doing. It was 15 minutes. It penetrated about that much of the roots. And so you can see the top part of the root, there are a few roots had formed on the upper edge of the root ball. The rest of it had never in 2 years grown anything because it had never seen a deep enough water. The secret is water really deep and then cut it back and then water again. So every 3, 4, 5 days you're watering, not every day. So your landscapers are not the brightest. They're not the sharpest tool, and they're just not. They couldn't get a job anywhere else, and they had a truck and a shovel. They don't know plants very well, truly. And so they're going to set that thing up to water every day, and they're going to go, it's a way to do it. No, you'll have the water guide in your inbox here shortly. Follow that. It's better. So it's the biggest mistake I find people make is they don't know how to deal with micro irrigation or drip irrigation, and they're watering too frequently and not deep enough. Take all that water you would have given it and gather it up and water it all at once. And push that water down through the entire root zone and a little deeper, and you'll get deeper rooted plants that will go through a drought cycle much better. We get drought cycles up here. So anyway, I got a whole class on nothing but water. I could go an hour deep on that. That's as far as I could touch here. You'll have to read the handout later. Okay, and if you got questions, come ask us. We'll help you. Okay, watering, zones. What else we at? Got frost dates. That's good. You are going to fertilize more often here. There is nothing redeeming about your soil. There's no food. There's no worms. There's no mycorrhizal colonies. There's no organics. There's nothing. But for some of you, you had some topsoil. The prairie areas out in Prescott Valley. You had some organic. You had some of that, but they took that and scraped it off and put it to the side, and then they put your footers and your driveways down, that kind of stuff. So some of you literally are in dead soil. There's nothing living. And if you put a plant in dead soil, it doesn't die, but it doesn't grow. It just sits there. Like year 1, it's the same size. Year 2, it's the same size. It's almost mocking you, going, I'm not growing here. I'm not growing in dead soil. You're going to have to reinvigorate as you plant that soil, or you bring in more manures, more organics, more compost into that garden area to reinvigorate that soil. So we use a lot of raised beds here just so we can go instant compost. We've got a lot of great soil right now. We can start growing. That's really helpful in heavy clay soil. So my gardens, I'm up in the Eagle Ridge subdivision, just above Prescott Lakes. I'm overlooking the Dells, just above the high school. It's beautiful. The vistas are gorgeous. I'm on a north slope. I look at the Dells. It's beautiful. North Slope is the most difficult gardening I have ever done, and I have farmed and gardened all over the county. We raised our family in Skull Valley. I've had farms in Chino Valley. I mean, all over. This is the most difficult because it's North Slope, which means it doesn't get the sun that much, doesn't dry out as much, and I tend to kill things by overwatering them. Heavy clay soil. I mean, just thick, gooey soil on a north slope that doesn't dry out. And so I've killed more plants than you could ever think of. It's almost embarrassing, but I've learned. And really what I did is I abandoned the soil, most of it, and I put some retaining block on the lower downhill side, built it up, and then backfilled. So I just had these tiers in the backyard going through this classic, it's a slope like this. You had to dig out the side of the house to get 2 stories. You're driving to the driveway and you walk downstairs. It's that house. Okay, it's beautiful vistas. The deck I was mentioning, it's on the upper floor. It's a 1.5 stories up. It's way up there, but the vistas are great. Wind can be kind of ferocious, but the soil is really hard. The way I could garden and have beautiful, they're stunning. They're like, oh, that guy could own a garden center kind of gardens. They're beautiful. But I had to abandon the soil in a lot of those places. And so you may have to do the same thing if you're going to grow if you love rooty, like dahlias, they're real fleshy root, peonies, they'll die in gooey soil. If you give them some drainage, they're glorious. So you may have to do raised beds or containers, that kind of stuff. I've had a couple back surgeries. So I'm not in the flower business, I'm in the dirt business, and it's heavy and it starts to wear on you. And so I've had a couple surgeries kind of correct that. Well, I can't get down like I used to, or I don't want to. So I do a lot of raised beds because I can sit there and I can garden right there. I've got pots because container gardens have potting soil, which is light, fluffy, easy to deal with. It just, for me, that worked out really well. So we have like over 50 containers. I grow trees in containers, shrubs, flowers. I'm a flower guy. I love flowers. I love picking dahlias and floating them in water, and it's just beautiful. It's like a piece of art. And so the fragrance, everything else, just a bonus. My lilacs have come back into bloom in those raised beds. In the ground, they aren't in bloom. Why? I think it's the soil. The soil made the difference. So you need to modify the soil a little bit. If you can't do that, if you've got to go in the ground, the way you do that is take this beautiful plant. This is Cotoneaster, or Cotoneaster is how you'd spell it. A lot of folks will plant red tip photinia. That's like the #1 seller. I would never plant that myself. It's too weedy. It has too many issues. It's got mildew right now. Bugs are eating it. Grasshoppers, deer like it. To my friends, I would try to talk you out of it. But it is the #1 seller. There's a reason for it. The brand new growth is red. It gets up ginormous. It gets like 12 by 12 by 12. It's a beast. I would never put that next to my driveway, next to my house. It's supposed to be out there because it just gets too big for most gardens. This one has no issues, has no bugs. Animals don't eat it. Some of you like your suits on, some of you don't. For those you don't, this is a good one for you. So it's going to block you right out because we don't want to see any of that. And so it's got these real pretty red berries in the winter. It's just beautiful. The way I would plant this, so the planting hole is going to be about the same depth as the bucket. Don't go down to China. As that soil settles, the plant will actually go subgrade and issues later. And so you want this plant to, the roots are going to grow sideways. They don't go down. Even very established trees, big junipers, they've been there for 300 years. They bulldoze them over to put your house in. If you look at the roots, they have roots maybe 3 feet down, and then they go out like this. So cottonwoods, they'll have roots that go 100 feet out. They don't go down. That taproot's a myth. There's nothing down there for a plant to go after. More caliche, rock hard clay, this calcium layer that nothing penetrates. It's cement in the ground, basically. It's not going to go through that. And so there's no water down there. There's nothing down there for them. They're going to go sideways and take advantage of the monsoon rains. That's what they're after. They're going to go, there's no food here. I'm going to creep over to the flower bed over there. I'm going to take the food from there. They're looking for nutrients and water sideways. So roots on a plant will go no more than a couple feet on a plant like this. 3 at most for even a big sycamore, your big maples, the big plants, maybe 3 feet. If you know they're going to grow that way, just encourage them. Grow this way. Just work with the environment, not against it. And so you're planting your hole about the same depth, but a bucket on either side, kind of round shaped, kind of saucered like this. It's much easier to dig a wide hole than a deep hole. So I've literally seen guys that have backhoes. You contractors, this is a hard one. You want to go deep, man. You want to go right down to the core of the earth. They're in there chest high going, what are you doing down there? Get out of that hole. Why are you doing that to yourself? As that soil kind of settles back down, the plant will actually shrink and be below grade. This top growth will get crown rot. So there's some bacteria that feeds off of the trunk of the tree, and it'll die about 2 years out. Just when it's outside the warranty, that's when it'll die. So I want my friends to be successful. So you kind of want to be good with that one. So keep this on, no matter what plant it is, keep that exposed. Don't bury it. And then the soil, this should be at soil level or a little above. I'll actually plant in my yard because I've got heavy clay, north facing slope. I leave this much of the root out of the ground. And then I'll mound the soil up. I'll just kind of feather it up on top of that. So it's not a very slight mound. Only I see it. You wouldn't see it. But it guarantees, no matter how much monsoon rain we get, it guarantees that much of the roots can breathe, no matter what. Or in March, it's another time you'll see a lot of damage. March, we get very heavy, wet snows. They can be pretty thick. You can get a foot of very heavy snow. And it sticks around the ground it takes a week for it to melt off, especially in the darker parts of the yard. That's when damage is going to happen to roots. They'll sit there gooey for a week and a half, just rotting in the yard in March. Or here, they'll just be afternoon rain after afternoon rain, and it starts to get too wet. This guarantees that you get some breathing. It's like leaving your nose out of the pool. You can go, your toes might come out a little pruny, but at least you're alive. You can breathe. The second you go underground, it's over. So with this, you're also going to need, let's just see the roots on this. Yeah, this is just about perfect. The other myth I have, especially my old timers, they go, beat this thing up until all the soil's gone. It'll be better for the plant. Don't do that. This is my baby. I've been growing this thing for 3 years. Just massage the roots like this. You're seeing the new root hairs coming out right now. This is exactly what you want to see. What you don't want to see is roots going like this. That's called root bound. And once they start training themselves to spiral, they don't stop just because you cut them. They just go, this is the way we grow now. This is what we do. So some things like cottonwoods, the big plants, sycamores, Bradford pears can sometimes do that. We don't sell those here at Waters Garden Center because that's not good. That's usually a carryover or a leftover from last year. It didn't sell last year, so they kept it over a second year. And so usually you'll buy it on sale at, out of box, at a big blue or orange box. And so the price is right. So if it dies, that's fine, but it's never going to perform as well as you want in the yard. Longevity-wise, it won't be as good. So because it's pruning. If you do see that, just cut it with some pruners or a knife or a razor blade. Call it root pruning. This is perfect. Here we just loosen it till the roots are kind of coming out sideways. Sometimes you'll see the bottom that's really happy. It's really fast growers. You'll see a matted area down here. I'll just take that and massage it like this. And then that's probably what I would put in the ground like that. So that's something that's kind of just, people seem to ask. That's how I do it. It seems to work really well. You should probably do the same thing. Okay, I'm going to take my soil I have out here. I'm going to screen it down. Anything bigger than a golf ball is not good for the soil. Get rid of it. So these big rocks, chunks of wood, old roots, anything bigger, the particles are too big to hold water molecules, so it just bakes the soil. It bakes the roots. It gets too hot. You want smaller particle sizes. Okay, I'm going to add some mulch. We call it premium mulch. I think I brought some of that. We're going to add some of this. And I brought an open bag just so you can see it. It actually looks like compost. Because you folks from the Midwest, you call mulch, it's bark chips, not composted material. No, in the West, we call it composted material. So this should be dark and rich looking. This is what's going to activate your mycorrhizal colonies. It's going to attract the worms, all those beneficial things that grow in the soil. This is what's going to activate those. Okay. It also keeps that heavy clay soil from compacting right back down. So we're going to change the structure of the soil around the roots where that plant is growing, so the plants will root out faster. So I'll use about 25% mulch to 75% of my native soil, or 1 shovel's worth of mulch for 3 shovels of native soil. You could cheat it up to about 50-50. After that, this stuff stays too wet. You probably need to add some, if you get a great big old boulder, I'm just going to throw this on the ground. If you get a great big old boulder or something, you might have to add some filler going to kind of bring that soil back up. So that's what topsoil is for. There's some things that we fill the hole back up with, but that's unusual. Usually you just filter out a few rocks, adding about 25-30% compost to your native soil, putting that together, and then backfilling around there, packing it down really well, water it in really well. That's how you do it. Another mistake I find a few rookies make, I don't sense this is a rookie crowd, it's just a new gardening to this area kind of crowd. But don't layer mulch and then native soil, mulch and native soil. Don't layer it like that. Blend it and then backfill. Roots don't like going through different types of soil. They get confused. They don't want change. And so they just want to go through consistency. So give them that, okay? When I'm all done with that, I will water it in. I will add some, I've got it right here. I've got a smaller bag of this too. If you're just getting just a tree, I got a half-size bag. But this is a fertilizer we put together. It's an organic or all natural food. I'll take a handful of that, sprinkle it around the plant. This is what's going to feed that plant for the next 3 months. So there is no food in your soil. You're going to have to fertilize it more often. We'll cover that in a second. But I want to give it some food, something to feed off of, so I see some new root growth and new top growth. When I'm all done, I'll water it in with the Root and Grow. This is a transplant shock thing. This is compost teas. We brew our own compost tea. It looks like fish emulsion without the goo. It's real dark molasses looking, without all that smell that comes with fish guts ground up and put on plants. That's great stuff too. It's just, I don't like selling you stinky things when we can do better. So I'll use this about every 2 weeks until I see the plant has stabilized. This is like open heart surgery and brain surgery at the same time. When you take a plant, this is the only home it's known. This is the only home it's ever known, except gel, tissue culture cells. That's in the laboratory. It starts with that, and we grow it up into 4-inch little tiny thing, and we shift it to 1 gallon, and we shift it up to 5 gallons. This is all it's known as this soil, this media. It's going to freak out when you put it in your ground. You put it in your silly dirt, It's not going to like that. You wouldn't like it either. And so it's going to go into stress. The root and grow helps it to stabilize, gets it going. Also, we front load. All of our plants come with mycorrhizal colonies. There's a fancy fungal thing that attaches itself to the roots, so the roots will actually grow out longer. So it's like filaments that grow off the roots. We're going deep into garden science now, but it's really good for the plants. And we know you don't have any in your yard as you are. And so we're just going to go, they don't have any. How can we help them? How the plant's going to benefit? They'll take better. So we're noted as a place where our plants live. They might be a little bit more expensive, but they always live. Those are the reasons why. We're putting the mycorrhizals in there, and that stuff interacts with the root and grow really well. I mean, it just takes it and feeds them. Have you ever dug into a compost pile and you see some white dust, white powdery kind of, you go, what is that? Those are mycorrhizal colonies. I usually will take those, it's like fairy dust, and I'll take them and spread them around the garden and go, this is the greatest thing ever. Oh my God, the plants are gonna be so happy. And so usually it grows where it's heavy, rich, composted material. That's where you naturally see it growing up. If it gets really happy, sometimes you'll see mushrooms join in and growing. So we'll see a lot of mushrooms this time of year. I think they're beautiful pieces of art. They're like gorgeous. So I keep them. Also, as they compost down, they're very good for the garden. If they bother you, some folks go, that's not right, shouldn't be growing there. Kick them, get them out of there. Anything kills a mushroom. There's no spray that will take them out. I get people going, what can I spray to get rid of my mushrooms? Usually what you'll do is like in a lawn, it's typically where they get that fairy, you'll get some mushrooms that kind of grow up in the grass. They're feeding off the matted thatch. They're helping break that down. They're helping you out, showing off, but they can be a little disconcerting as you look at them in the gardens. Usually what we'll do is just fertilize, get plants to actively grow, and they choke out the mushrooms. So it's kind of how you get out of that. It makes sense. So you need some mulch, food, root and grow. That's how you plant it. And you'll have the handout here shortly. It'll go over exactly how much per size. We try to go into too much detail. And the water guide's right there with it. So you'll have all those in your inbox shortly. How are we doing on time? We're doing okay. Plants, animals. I may have to skip the animal piece. We are living in the wildland interface. Oh, let me just, while I'm talking soils. If you're doing containers and raised beds, so your contractor builds a raised bed for you. It's 4x8 or 3x3 or whatever the size is. You got this raised bed now. They'll go down to the rock yard, and they've got to have soil there too because there's such demand for things. So they've got their garden mix. So what they'll do is they're paid to dig out stock tanks because they have backhoes because they're dealing with rock. They got a trailer. They dig out the stock tank or Willow Lake or something. They're getting this heavy silt material. It looks thick, but it's clay. It doesn't drain very well. So then they'll get some free manure because there's horses everywhere. So they'll pick up a manure pile because they own a truck and a backhoe. So they get that manure pile, and then they'll get some wood chips from the city because they do a lot of chipping stuff and it's all free. They're trying to get rid of it, and they own a fork, a backhoe, and a truck, and it's free. So they just go get that. They blend it all together. They call it their garden mix. It's terrible. It's terrible stuff. It's good filler, but it doesn't grow things very well. So what I'll tell folks with really big beds, use the junk gardener mix from the rock yards. I know they use the word garden in the mix, but that doesn't mean it's going to grow anything. But it does drain. They got it where it does perk. That's good. Whereas your native soil, don't ever build a bed and then put native junk in there, or you just created a brick basically inside this raised bed. You want artificial, you want outside soil to fill it up. So I'll fill that up and I'll leave the top, 8 to 12 inches, and I'll just put potting soil. Just put this. The science is in potting soil. This has got perlite, those little white specks. For drainage, it's got peat moss, compost. It's a recipe. A good soil is a recipe. We've been perfecting this recipe. It's like a cookie or bread recipe. It's the same. I just do it with dirt. And so this is our growers mix. Our grower developed this 20 years ago, and nothing grows better than this. And I wouldn't use this and blend it in the top layer of my raised bed. I would just put this on top of that top bed. So when I come by my tomato or my lettuce or my broccoli or my flowers, geraniums or pansies, this soil, it's more of that. It's the same stuff as that. It's this in a bag. And I would top off my raised bed or my containers. This is made for pots. I would just use this straight. Don't blend it. Just fill it up, plant in it, and go. So that's one mistake. It gets really confusing. You do an internet search, you'll get all kinds of craziness coming at you with different kinds of, get 3 parts of this and 2 parts of that. Jump up and down under a full moon and then plant and it'll all be good. That doesn't make sense. Just do just take the junk as filler, top off the rest of the bed. If you can invest in all of this, right from the bottom to the top, do that. That's better. I'm just trying to help you extend those landscaping dollars and get more per $100 bill, whatever. So I do think that the inflation of plants is done, or it's not going to be very much. Trucking's starting to come down. Soils have come down, so it looks like we're able to get pots. Pots are made in China. They're coming over. The black growers pots, that bottleneck's kind of tied up. Fertilizers are kind of weird. Fertilizers are like 4 times their cost. It's crazy. Anything that's in the farmers that grow corn, which is corn is your fuel tank. Corn, it's the box. It's the wrapping inside the box, cereal box. I mean, everything's made of corn. That's a frightening one because the fertilizers are going to really, nitrogen is still really high to get that it's made in like Morocco, Ukraine, some weird places where they're influenced. So that's one I don't know about, but I think the inflation rampant that we've seen is stabilized, I hope. I want it to be. So anyway, that's potting. So any questions on that? You got it? I would say at least 8 inches. If you're doing deeper crops, like tomatoes like more, carrots, they like a little bit more, like a foot. So it just depends on the crop. If you're doing flowers, most flowers, I mean, unless it's potato vine or some of those, they might like a little bit deeper. But 8 inches is what the book says on the good soil. And you'll have guaranteed success. I could throw this hat on this kind of soil in a nice garden bed and it would start to grow. If you do that, it'll start to grow. If you just try to go with their garden mix, people struggle and struggle. I try to help them. It's 2 years of struggle. And finally I go, just dig out the top layer, put this in, and they have success. And just again, we're trying to help you jump ahead and just not have some of these struggles before you figure it out. So I'm just trying to get you, you're going to make mistakes in gardening. You're going to kill a thing or 2. It's okay. You have permission. That's how you learn gardening. I just don't want you going backwards. That's the goal of this class. We just want you making mistakes in the right direction at least so you can learn from that. And then once you figure it out, just keep doing that every year and share it with neighbors and friends. You better. Shall we go over to some plants just so you can go seasonality? What I did is I broke it down with things like this plant. If you're from the Midwest, East Coast, you know this plant. This is Euonymus, probably the most famous of all the screening plants. It grows really well here. It's got a thick, waxy leaf. All the new growth is bright, just gold. It also comes in green, comes in a cream color. This is golden Euonymus. Euonymus, E-U-O. Come look at the tag later, take a picture. So it's got a lot of anyway. Deer like to eat this. It can get some mildew. It does grow fast. If you have rabbits, don't plant this one. A better choice locally is this one. This is our local native. It's the same thing. Grows the same size. Has a little bit different look, but has that gold to it. But this gets up to head high. Gets easily this high, this wide. Gets like this. And it's a native. No animals eat this. No bugs get on it. I'll grow it for about a year. Then I bend off the irrigation. Or actually, I'll keep the irrigation on this one until I get up to the size I want. Then I cut it off of all further care. It gets no more water. It's a true native. It's far better than the East Coast version. It's a little bit different. It's got a native-y look to it. So the new growth comes out blue. Then it gets this golden kind of color to it. But this is the one I use myself. I don't use this one. This is the more popular. So more of these. But I think locally we should be planting this one, Silverberry, or Ellie Agnes is the name of this one. Ellie Agnes, yep, or Silverberry. Again, our website, watersgardencenter.com, it's not just a billboard. You can't just do that anymore. That's so 1990s. It's an active living encyclopedia. So I write a garden column or 2 a week. We do videos, training. The class is being streamed. Thanks for streaming in very much. Hey, if you could take a moment, you folks online, just hit the like button. Subscribe if you're doing it through YouTube. Like if you're on Facebook. Make a comment, because we're competing against Home Depot and Lowe's that have quadruple $1 million ad budgets. We got nothing. It really helps us with those ad searches. So anyway, Google kind of dominates your life if you're in small business. So anyway, take a moment. Now I forgot where I was going. I was doing the advertisement. Anyway, Ellie Agnes and Euonymus. Put those away. Privet's another one. This is Texas privet. Folks from the Texas southern area, this is more popular. As you go farther north, the gold one's more popular. They both grow really well here. This one doesn't have as many issues as the goldens. Gets a fragrant white flower to it. You just like green year round, it's an evergreen. Does really well. But again, what I plant, I go for the silverberry because it's truly native. And once I get it rooted, it does not need any further water. You would never have to water it again. If you were to keep that on drip irrigation during the monsoon, in fact, you're seeing this with your Russian sage. There's a blue shrub about hip high. It's got spiky blue flowers. The bees love it. It's a pollinator. And some of them are just laying over. They're literally drunk. I mean, they're drunk, like curbside, face down drunk. They have too much water. So they need less monsoon rain. They need to dry out. And when they do, they'll perk right back up. And so I don't put them on drip irrigation. If they've been in for a year, don't water them. They don't need it. If you need to, water by hand once in June when it's hot and dry, but they're just starting to grow at that point. So you usually don't need it. So my other ones, I've given a haircut. Some of them were in the more shade. They just had this floppy look. I just trimmed off the top. They're too heavy, too much water's in them. I just gave them a haircut and went dong, right back up. They just look beautiful now. So it's okay to prune in the summer. It's okay to give them a haircut. They might benefit from that. So let's go with this one, another native. I think this one is better. This is true. You'll see this growing out in the wild. This is silk tassel bush. It's an evergreen, gets about this tall. Thick, nice, full evergreen. Gets a real pretty white, feathery, kind of tassel-y flower to it. Very fragrant. Butterflies love it. But it's a native plant you've never seen anywhere else in the country except here. And it's difficult to grow, but we got some. But it looks innocent now, but it's going to get fuller and fuller and fuller and thicker. It's a pretty evergreen shrub. So you should have 20% of your yard should be dedicated to spring bloomers. Lilacs, forsythia, flowering quince, all those things that start in spring. You should have 20% of your landscape dedicated to summer bloomers. Rose of Sharon's, crepe myrtles, roses. Those are all summer things. They bloom and look great in the summer. We'll cover a couple more. 20% should be dedicated to fall color, maples, amber maples, amelanchers, all that orangey, bright gold, aspens. They're beautiful in the fall. Starting in October, we are gorgeous. I mean, it's beautiful to see that transition. 20% should be dedicated to evergreens. Just things that just stay green year-round. They may not bloom. They may not be as sexy as a lilac that triple blooms in the year, but you need some foundational things in the yard that just carry you in January so it doesn't look like a lunar landscape. So 20% evergreens. That last 20% is whatever tickles your fancy. If you tend to summer down here or winter down here and you're from Alaska and you're going back to Alaska, get more summer things because that's when you're living here. Who cares about evergreens? Well, evergreens in the winter. No, dedicate more anyway. Go to the off season. What is that? I said summer down here. You're summering up there, wintering down here, Alaska. Then we got our whole Phoenix crew. There's like this migration thing that happens. The Scottsdale, Palm Springs, Tucson, they tend to summer up here and they winter down there. So those folks should focus on summer things. This is when they're here the most. So just kind of focus on whatever. You just don't have a plan. Come in and be inspired and go, I like that. Just plant that 20%. So 20, does that make sense, the mix? If you do that, you'll have a better looking yard. This is silk tassel. Actually, it's Paragaya wrightii. We call it silk tassel bush, native-wise. There are no good names for native plants. This one's got a good name. This is Chaste Tree. You're seeing a big tree, like a big bush or short tree. It's up about 10, 12 feet. Vase-shaped. It's covered in these blue flowers right now. It's called Chaste Tree, C-H-A-S-T-E, S-T, Chaste Tree. Good pollinator, drought hardy. It is deciduous, that is, it'll lose its foliage in the winter, but it has 2 seasons covered. Summer, it's a summer bloomer, now through autumn. Then it's got this beautiful aspen gold color as the foliage turns. And it's just got this good structure to it, good interesting shape. Mainly if you want butterflies in the yard, this is your plant. And it's super drought hardy. This one happens to be a dwarf. So the standard one gets 10, 12 feet. This is called Chaste Tree. No, this is a standard one, I think. Never mind, I teased you. They're both standard. I've got several Chaste Trees. We're trying to introduce more dwarf things, so there's less maintenance to them. So this one I brought mainly for the East Coast folks. We can grow hydrangeas here. We can grow azaleas. We can grow rhododendrons. We have beauties that grow here in the shade. So the lesson here is just because the tag says it grows in full sun doesn't mean it's going to grow in full sun here. So here you'll see these growing in the East Coast where it's cooler. You'll see them growing right out there. Here, this thing would not fare well. It can take some sun, but I keep in that morning or into the day, keep it out of that 10 to 2 midday sun, it won't like that. It'll get wilty, it'll get brown. It will live, but you won't like it. And the flowers won't last very long. They'll flame out real quick. And so it'll bloom for a day or two and then it's done. This should bloom for like a month and a half. It should be a huge bloom cycle. So hydrangeas, all those shade lovers. Another one this is for my Southern Cal folks. You all love your Japanese maples. In Southern California, it grows in full sun. Here it does not. Here it needs some shade. So they'll take a lot of sun, but that 10 to 2, they tend to get brown tips on the leaves. The lace leaf ones tend to get vaporized. If you put them in the shade, they're fantastic. North side of the house. I grow mine in containers on the north side of the house. They're beautiful. They've been there for years. You can have those things, but it might be a little bit different where you need to plant them. And if you're not sure, ask us. Also, our website, we've got a shop button at the top. We're trying to show these things off online. And the data that we put on there, we're putting the sun, how much wind, how much water they need. We're trying to put our local, how do they grow here? So it's like a placard. It's great for learning. You can buy it online. I'd rather have you come in here and buy it, but you could get it there, pick it up here. We're trying to be as flexible as you can, but it's a really good education tool to help you know, where do I put that thing? Where's it going to grow best? So this would be shade. We don't look at the national tag. We're looking at the local, how does it grow here? So trying to be a good resource for you. We truly, truly want you to not make a mistake. Here's one I have killed 5 times in my yard. I've stopped trying. This is manzanita. We're famous for our manzanitas. I want manzanita, just that heavy clay, north slope. It wants full sun, south facing, dry, crusty, next to a boulder kind of soil. It wants that. And I don't have that. And so I've switched over to junipers, some other stuff, and made up for it. But this classic red bark, green foliage, bell-shaped white flower in spring. It's a pollinator early, like it blooms in March. So when the honeybees start coming out and foraging, there's nothing out there for them. They'll be attracted to this. It's a really good one. So we're trying to introduce more varieties. So we've got a ground cover variety. It's called Knick. Only gets this tall, but it spreads like this. Manzanita, red bark evergreen. This is Panchito. Gets next size. We got this standard. We got 3 different sizes that we're growing. We got the regular Howard McMahon. That's the big boy. It gets pretty substantial, and everything in between. Many of the smaller lots, those bigger plants are just almost too big for you. Put them out there in the yard, maybe against the fence, but next to the patio, they're too big. So this one I would plant and maybe water it by hand. Don't put it on drip irrigation. Rosemary does great. And I'll end on this one because we're starting to go long. I could go all day long on this, but I wanted to mention herbs. We grow herbs better than anywhere else in the country. Literally, they love that bright sun and dryness. And most are perennials. They'll come back year after year, except basil. That can come back, but it's coming back by seed, not by the root. The definition of a perennial is it'll come back from this root, that plant, bigger next year than it did this year. That's a perennial. Perennial and pea, permanent. They're kind of repeat. Annuals are they glorious for a year and then they're done. They're dead. Okay. I brought this just because we have so much influence from Phoenix. So rosemary is a very large palette of plants. There's probably 50 different varieties of rosemary. You only want to plant in your yard the higher elevation varieties. All those desert varieties will flame out and they don't come back in the winter. So there's, just to let you know, a rosemary is not a rosemary is not a rosemary. You want ones that are tested for here. And so we are specialized, especially the ground cover varieties. This comes in a carpet variety and an upright variety. The carpet ones are kind of wimpy. There's really only 2 that grow up here, ARP and Huntington carpet. And those are the only ones that we sell up here. So if you're buying ground cover rosemary, that's all we're going to sell. We're not going to go all those Phoenix varieties. This is called Tuscan Blue. I think that's right. Yeah, Tuscan Blue. This is a bigger one. Gets about this big. So also, the last thing I can leave you with is your tag, especially the national tag. It'll say grower, you've grown it in the Northwood Bosnian pine in Portland. It says it grows up to 25 feet tall. Here it's going to be about 20% less, 25% less here because of the dryness. They don't grow as large here as they do in other parts of the country. They don't grow as fast. The leaves might be a little bit smaller. And you'll notice that. Going, I've grown this other places. Why isn't it performing like that? It's the dryness. It's the alkalinity. When you fertilize, never, ever put hydrated lime on your gardens. You'll hear that, HGTV, Fine Garden Magazine, it's time to lime all your gardens. Everywhere else in the country you do that, but here our water is so alkaline, and lime raises the pH. Well, if you're a real acidic, like Midwestern soil where you got 8 foot of topsoil, that's great. You need to do that. Here we don't do that. You'll kill your garden by adding lime. Another one I find, another big mistake, and I could go on, it just as they come up, your potash, your wood ash from the grill or from the fireplace, or from the fire pit. Don't ever put that in your garden. You will kill your garden. So again, it's very alkaline. And so it'll raise that pH so nothing will grow. It's like your hot tub. It's 0 to 10. You're checking your pH in your hot tub. If you get it too high, you get out of the hot tub and your skin feels like it's going to crawl off. That's what's going to happen in the soil and the roots crawl off. So you want to keep that pH. The book says 6.5 is the perfect pH. You'll never reach that here. You don't have to be perfect. You just got to be close, and plants will perform. So if you're under 7.0, you're good. I've literally seen some wells, 9.1, 9.2. That's death in liquid form. That's like ammonia. That's really high pH. You have to figure out how to lower that. So you're always adding soil sulfur to your gardens. So I'm also going to send you a link. So I put together, I have a radio. How many have heard me on the radio before? Okay, not as many as I wanted, just a third of you. Thank you for this side of the room, and 1. Thank you. You're my token female over here. Thank you. I'm going to send you a link to my podcast. So I broadcast over 7 different terrestrial antennas, traditional radio, all over northern Arizona. Put together an hour program every week, every Saturday. Been doing it for decades. Well, the internet's allowed you to put this together in podcast form. So I just take the segments that I send to the radio, and now you can listen to it on your phone or wherever you want, whenever you want. I'll send you a link to that too, just so you can, it's got a follow button at the top. You can just follow that and go. That, I think today it's, I forget what it is. I've got like 500 podcasts. I've been doing this for years. So you can take the ones you like, but that might be of help because we do this in hour form over the radio. I think that might help this group especially. Follow if you want. If you don't like it, fine. So my wife and I kind of banter back and forth for an hour. With that, I'll take 3 questions. One from this side, one from this side, and one online. How about that? This side first. Any questions? Yep.
What about maintenance fertilizing?
Yeah. You are going to fertilize more often. I have a whole class on just fertilizing. You fertilize 4 times a year. If you're thinking holidays, think Easter for spring, 4th of July for summer, taking advantage of the rain. The most important feeding of the year, bar none, Halloween. It is what sets the stage for everything in the spring. Taking that food, and that's what it's going to use for flowers, fruits, lilacs. And then for evergreens especially, you really benefit from fertilizing. This is really weird, but New Year's. Keeps them green. We'll get winter chlorosis happening. Really benefits. And use the all-purpose plant food. Wherever that went, that all-purpose, use this every time. Don't have to get fancy. Just use this, and you'll have the best, luscious-looking yard ever. Anyone on this side? Yep.
Do we consider zone 7 also?
We are all zone 7. We're all the same. You flirt heavier with 8. You could probably grow way more 8 zone stuff. That's the blue agaves, the Texas Ranger, sage, some of those things we really want to grow here. It'll be borderline. If we go real cold winter, it might kill it off there. But generally, Paulden. Paulden's the most extreme of all the cases. Got all that cold air settling off of Ash Fork right on top of you. You get the extreme wind. Everything's extreme at Paulden. But we're all kind of the same. Online, hey, Ken, is there anyone online? Then we can take one more in the back. There we go. Grome Creek, I would call it zone 7. Generally, we would have called it zone 6 because you do get 5 degrees cooler. We're talking increments. You're definitely a strong 6. I would say you're not a zone 8. You're not. You got to go colder. That's at that 6,000 foot level. You're just a click colder. That's a good question. But generally, if in doubt, go 7 and lower. You're probably good to go. Okay. Thanks, y'all. Before you go, I'll hang out as long as you want. Take a look at the plants. I like to be clapped for, though. Go ahead. Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that. You all have been a great.